According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the job market is now facing its largest revision in U.S. history, with long-term unemployment at its highest rate in nearly a decade. And despite LinkedIn hosting nearly 2 million ghost jobs alone, job seekers continue to be met with claims of a booming economy, raising the question, if the labor market is so strong, why are we continuously drowning in jobs that don't even exist? While the US unfortunately has a rich history of abandoning its workforce, decades of fabricated job openings and manipulated economic data have conditioned society to see employment as nothing more than numbers on a screen. Mass layoffs are treated as extra fuel for a company's stock price, while unemployment is reduced to just another interest rate metric, forgetting that behind those numbers are real people whose lives are being completely upended. So in efforts to rehumanize the job market, I spoke with everyday people like you to help uncover what is actually going on and to prove that humans are far more than just data points.
My name is Maura DeSico. I live in Iowa City. I'm 23 years old. I recently graduated from the University of Iowa, and pretty much everyone I know, except one or two people, including myself, we do not have jobs. If we do have a job, we're probably working in the service industry or doing what we can to get by. Um, and it's very frustrating to have spent 4 years working on a degree, working at a university where you work with actual clients, build client work, have real experiences, have internships, and then to turn around and not be able to find a place to go from there. It's definitely made me reevaluate my decisions, if I made the right decision going to college, because it feels like I could have been at the same place if I had just not left my hometown and done something different. It definitely makes me feel like a failure, if I'm completely honest. And I've had so many people tell me that I'm not a failure. They're in the same situation that I am, but they feel the same way. They're struggling with the same things. And I think we need to stop telling people that this is the way to be, this is the American dream. You have a career and then you build whatever after that, because if we do, we're gonna keep running into the same problems of people feeling completely at a loss of what to do with their lives, but still trying to hold on to hope.
And with Maura courageously sharing the unfortunate reality that the nation's youth is emerging into adulthood, already feeling like a failure, let's reflect on why employers are fabricating job listings to begin with. 62% of respondents said they posted ghost jobs expressly to make their employees feel replaceable. 77% reported an uptick in productivity among workers because they were scared of losing their job. More than 60% did so to make employees believe their workload would be alleviated by new workers, with 70% believing that it is morally acceptable to do this, completely negating the fact that this is affecting real people who are already struggling to make ends meet.
Hi, I'm Isaac. I am currently living up in the Pacific Northwest in a city called Beaverton, Oregon. I guess my education, I'm educated as a biomedical engineer, but I spent a year of time unemployed between March of 2024 and March of 2025. What's difficult is trying to determine the difference between like what is and is not a real job, right? Because they all kind of look the same. In fact, a lot of them are generated by AI, the descriptions and whatnot, so they're may indistinguishable. A lot of the time, you really cannot tell whether something is ghost job or not. And part of this has led to the perception that recruiters are just not reaching out to people to let them know whether accepted or denied. But I would wager the big part of that is due to the fact that those jobs never existed in the first place. So there's no one to reply, right? Because they're not going to spend resources on it. And I actually spoke with a human resources recruiter, like a talent acquisition specialist, who was kind enough to kind of break it down for me from what they understood. And what they told me was the two primary reasons why companies are incentivized to create ghost jobs. First of all, there is no consequence or regulation that prevents them from doing so. Is A, to get a read on the job market. How little can I pay someone for the most amount of work, right? And also B, to kind of like get a measure on how much talent is out there. So if they want to actually expand in the future, they are kind of have that pre-existing knowledge of how much leverage they have, which kind of expands my previous point. But I guess the third thing would be also it kind of creates the illusion of growth. So in this investor economy, you want to look like you're growing as much as possible, and we've witnessed plenty of companies dramatically upsize, and then as soon as investment dollars come in, massive layoffs, because all those jobs were always intended to be transitory, but they don't tell employees that. I'm very fortunate that I have the experience to have, had a 6 month emergency fund, had access and an understanding of how to access unemployment insurance. The situation in which I lost my job allowed me to claim unemployment insurance. And without a combination of those factors, I honestly don't know how I would have survived, right? Because even with all that, I barely managed to make it that entire year without taking out debt or anything, right? And that's to say, I don't have any debt, so I was not bear down by a mortgage payment. I didn't have a car payment bearing down on me. I was just paying bills, which is already a lot. But if someone was already under the weight of, interest payments and late fees and other debt repayment, then I don't understand how they can. It's just not, the safety net isn't there.
And with Isaac sharing the reality that tens of thousands of workers are falling through the cracks of this pick yourself up by your bootstrap society, it's important to recognize that even after sending hundreds, if not thousands of applications, this stress doesn't just disappear once you finally get a job.
Hi, I'm Andra. I'm 27. I live in Minneapolis. I definitely applied to thousands of jobs and only a fraction of them ever got viewed on LinkedIn when you can see that. So they weren't even looking at the people applying. And then at a certain point, I worked for one company where we didn't post ghost jobs, but we always had listings posted, and they would take interviews with people and then just not hire them because they had these postings listed, but it was only we would only hire them if they were the absolute perfect candidate because we didn't really need anyone at that time for that position, which I thought was really weird. But I specifically remember my one friend who used to work for one of those Fortune 500s. And their company was constantly, all the time, posting, and you can probably go find them today on LinkedIn, just so many jobs. They always had jobs posted for their marketing department and whatnot. And so one day I was hanging out with him. I was scrolling through LinkedIn. We were just chilling. And I was like, yeah, I should apply to one of these. It'd be super funny if we ended up working together. And he looked at me. He's like, I wouldn't even bother with that. Because one, either the job isn't real, or two, most likely it's a job we're hiring for internally, and there's some sort of legal reason as to why they have to post it and pretend like they're looking for people outside the company. I would assume that if the perfect candidate came from outside of the company, sure, they would hire them, but mainly they were just moving people around inside the company and pretending to hire externally. It was horrible. Obviously, we all went to college, and many of us intentionally picked degrees where we were promised oh, this industry is booming, right? This is going to be so good. You're going to make XYZ when you come out of college. And then you come out of college, and the only thing that'll take you is a shitty $30,000 a year marketing job in person at some place that's just terribly run. It feels terrible. And it's stressful, right? Because even that position that I was able to get took me months and months, if not a year. Because I do think I started applying my senior year before I graduated. I had to go back to working as a nanny full time and continue applying throughout then. And even then, they only started paying me I think $1 or $2 more than I was earning nannying. And that was fucking ridiculous to me. You're telling me I went and got a full degree to earn $1 more than nannying kids a couple hours every day.
Where these examples make it crystal clear that the issue isn't laziness or entitlement, it's a system that continuously fails people no matter how hard they work. And while it might feel like there is nothing we can do to fix this, I spoke with a gentleman named Eric Thompson who reached out to share that after being laid off with over 20 years of IT experience and facing the same struggles as Maura, Isaac, Andra, and many of you, he joined forces with a professional recruiter and lawyer to create the Truth in Job Advertising and Accountability Act, a landmark legislation designed to eliminate fake jobs, protect job seekers' privacy, and restore integrity to the hiring process. It ensures that every public job posting is a genuine opportunity, funded, timely, and traceable, while holding employers, recruiters, and platforms accountable for deceptive practices. Where Eric is going to explain how they made the TJAAA, their progress in getting this implemented, and why it is so important that we raise awareness for this issue.
We put it in a format that the House legislative council recommends, which means a lot of special spacing and definitions in different sections. That really helped us clarify things. And then we also looked at what the law was doing. So we went from being purely, you can't have a ghost job, to defining what a ghost job is and how we wanted to stop it, which we said it's a nutrition label. We're going to take what you see on the back of every food box, and we're going to take that same type of format, that required information, and make people put it on every job. And then we're going to take all these job boards who make millions of money off of people desperate for a job search and make them do their due diligence to make sure this information is accurate and real. As we've gone on, we've discovered there's more nefarious things going on. Identity theft is huge. We're actually seeing people get hired by companies that they send you all the W-2, your direct deposit form, everything else that you would need for a job, and then especially for remote jobs. You go, you get all this done, you get all the paperwork, you send it back, and then you're waiting on a start date, or you have a start date comes around, and you never hear anything. And we go, okay, well, what are they doing? Well, then they're taking your bank account information, which you gave them so you could get paid, or you gave them your social security number, whatever, and your identity is being stolen. I went, okay, that really can't happen. And then I found out that job fraud is the number one growing uh, crime in the United States. And that's actually been published by the FTC. And we're talking about almost $1 billion in loss reported to the FTC, and most of it, I believe, goes unreported because people are embarrassed. I got hired by a company that disappeared on me. Why did they disappear? And was a shock. I was contacted by a young lady a woman out of the UK. Her daughter had responded to a job ad for modeling, and they said, "Come on down to Italy. We will do a photo shoot. Here's all the information." She said her 20-something-year-old daughter took off to go down there and found out that it was fake, and almost ended up being in a very bad situation from that. That is what we're finding is that these fake jobs are just a gateway to all sorts of other crime. So we said, okay, we don't want that anymore. We're going to firmly state that the applicant owns their data and that you have to tell the applicant what you're doing with it. That's kind of where we stand today. The AAA is all about protecting the job applicant and as a entity and recognizing the individual is important. And that all starts with keeping the job applicant informed about the initial job posting and then what happens to their data after that.
And what is it that we can do to help gain traction for the TJ AAA?
We have a change.org petition out there, and that's the biggest help we need right now, is just proving the scale of what's going on. At the scale, there's no real data out there that says this is going on. We have done a lot of research, and then we have talked to a lot of news reporters, congressional staffers who've done independent research, but it hasn't really gotten a formal study from the government on what to the extent. Like I said, the government knows the problem exists. There's no extent. There's no data that I can pull because, and I agree that there should not be a law against a company posting an ad and then pulling an ad for legitimate corporate reasons. And in the AAA, we actually state there are reasons. If you repost an ad or you pull an ad, you have to give one of these reasons of why. So we didn't want to impact that, but we wanted the people to be informed. And because that is still a legal business practice and there's no reporting mechanism in place, the actual extent of this is hard to define, but we're looking at anywhere from 20 to 40% of online job ads being fake. Even Fortune 500 companies are admitting that they're being fake. There's like, I think the latest study said 70% of jobs, 70% of companies are admitting they have posted a fake job for one reason or another.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. And there's so many people that are feeling like, they don't have worth in their lives or are facing real struggles, aren't able to provide for their family because of the many reasons that you listed. And it's really disgusting. And so I really appreciate you and the other members creating this, being willing to share it, and, providing the link. The link will be in the description to where you can click it, and then it sends you straight to being able to contact your local congressman. Am I correct on that?
The way it works with change.org is you sign up, you become part of our list, and then once we had 1,000 members, we're sending the list to all of the congressional staffers, which will make their way to the congressmen or senators. You just mentioned that there are the impact on an individual. We have one of our founding members is involved because her brother became so distraught that he had to remove himself from, or he felt he needed to remove himself from the equation entirely. And we've had other members come forth and say after a severe struggle, they've had to make the choice, or they made the choice to leave this earth rather than continue the struggle. It is heartbreaking, but I myself have gotten to the point where I understood that was the hard part about all this. You really start to feel that you're not worth anything when you can't even get people to call you back and say you're not qualified for this. It's the silence is deafening.
It's horrible. And, because of I guess the size and really the effort I put into these videos, I get hundreds of comments a week of people saying that same thing. They don't feel like they're worth being here on earth and all of those things. And predominantly it's young people. So that's the future of our country, is choosing to, do the many unfortunate acts that they choose to do. And that is, those are the people that are supposed to make our lives better and carry the torch going forward. And if that is happening because people just can't get a job, it's absolute absurdity. And, once again, I really do appreciate you bringing light to this subject.
No, I appreciate you. Yours was one of the first videos that we found and has been one of the most eye-opening videos that we have used to actually reference and send people over, because you reference the history of it and give the background of it. And that was so important to proving that it wasn't necessarily a new occurrence, but the scale of it with the use of AI and the internet and the advanced communication is really driving that impact to be unheard of before. It's not just a newspaper clipping or a poster in a window anymore. It is a notice to the world, and there's so many of them out there that it is just it's deafening.
And so what I hope that we can begin to recognize is that as ghost jobs are just completely degrading the job market and impacting tens of thousands of workers' lives, if we do not begin to recognize that these data points are human beings, people that are trying to provide for their family, start a career, start a family, to begin to set roots for the future of our country, things are going to get worse increasingly fast. If you have the nation's youth feeling like they are worthless because they are unable to get a job, that is not a bright future ahead. But I do want to take a moment to just acknowledge the courage it took for Maura, Isaac, Keith, whose discussion will actually make it into another video here in the next couple weeks, Andra and Eric, to actually come on the channel and share their experiences. These are the stories that are going to make a change. This video took me weeks to make because I couldn't find anybody to actually be willing to be interviewed for the video. I was reaching out to people in group chats designated to ghost jobs, and they would say that they were willing to do the interview, and then I would get ghosted. I would send follow-up after follow-up after follow-up after follow-up, and I would get nothing in return. And then I would have some individuals that after a couple follow-ups would then say, yes, I'm willing to do so, until I would find out that their career coach said they actually shouldn't do it because it would hurt their hireability. And I'm not saying that to judge or anything like that. I am just saying that I am providing a microphone. I'm trying to allow you to use your voice as a tool for change. I truly do believe that there is hope for a better tomorrow, but we have to have the courage to act on it. We have to continuously try and want to make that happen. Eric is providing an opportunity for you to be able to make a contribution, to try to make a change for ghost jobs, and just the way that job applications happen in general. I will continuously do the best that I can to provide the microphone for you to be able to use your voice to make a change. And another thing that I am doing that many of you now know is I'm creating a Patreon to really build some grassroots community operations within that and have that help fund a 3 to 6 month road trip throughout the working class and rural cities, rural towns of America. So I just want to say that because there are people just like you, as the people in this video have proved, that are trying to make a difference, that are doing the best that they can. And just, I want you to know that you are never alone. We are just in different rooms. And I heard that recently, and that has really provided me a lot of hope. You are never alone. We are just in a different room. So I hope this video was able to provide some value to you. Please use your voice in the comment section. Provide some hope and optimism or some sort of concern that you have, or use your voice for some productive conversation. But that's enough from me today. Until next time, bye-bye.